Welcome back. All right, now today we are going to start to add some style to our website, finally. All right, so we're going to add color, and we're going to be using our first CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. All right, so before we get started on exactly how to add color, background colors, text colors, all kinds of other colors, I should talk to you about two things. Number one is that HTML supports colors by name. Okay, so there are quite a few color names by which we can refer to HTML colors. So HTML supports colors by name. Okay, so here's a little link for you. And these are the names of all of the colors that HTML supports by name. And you can see next to each one of these, for example, if you specified Indian red, it would also give you a hex number for the color, which is a color code that is predicated by a hashtag and consists of 6 alphanumeric combinations. Gives you an RGB value. For example, this red is RGB 250, red 255, green 87, blue 51. And it also gives you an HSL level, which is hue, saturation, lightness, hue 11, saturation 80%, lightness 60%. So that's for this hex value. So for Indian red, here's the hex value. You can refer to it by name. You can refer to it by a hex value, an RGB level, or a hue, saturation, brightness level. Now, there's another little trick thrown in here, and that's that there's also an alpha level, which refers to transparency, which is built in to HTML. And we're going to get back to that in just a little bit. All right, so that is known as RGBA. So it would be red, green, blue, and A would be the alpha value or the transparency level. And those are all referred to numerically. All right, so that sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook, doesn't it? All right, so let's try picking some colors. This particular website happens to be my favorite website for picking HTML colors. And it is called, unsurprisingly, htmlcolorcodes.com. So you can use a picker. We just looked at all the color codes that are specified by name. And it gives you kind of a nice reference there because it groups them into color families. So, for example, if you want to specify papaya whip as your color, you can do it that way. Or you can specify it all kinds of other ways. All right, let's look at a picker. Okay, so let's say your client has a specific blue value that they're looking for. And you're saying, okay, well, what do you think, Mr. Client? All right, we like this color. So here's its hex value. Here's its RGB value, its hue, saturation, lightness value, and its CMYK value, which we don't care about for web design, but which we would care about if we were to have to match this color in print. So that does become important in the design world because we're constantly matching color between print and other media. So getting back to our PowerPoint here, here's just a couple other references. And I'm going to skip over this for now. This is just a reference for you on special characters like non-breaking spaces and copyright symbols and all that other stuff. All right, so for this exercise, we're going to use what is known as inline CSS. All right, so this brings us to the second thing that I want to discuss with you. Inline CSS is not standard practice. So even though we're going to use it to practice adding color today, this is not what I want you to do and it is not considered professional code. It is considered dirty code, what we would call in the web design world, we would call it dirty code. So let me give you an example of CSS that's inline, CSS that's in the head tag, and CSS that is a separate file. So hopefully this won't confuse you. So for example, CSS inline is literally using your styles within as an attribute of whatever tag you're working with. So remember, HTML tags can have attributes. So this H1 tag has a style attribute. It has a border, of 2 pixels, and it's solid tomato. All right, so that is using CSS, or simply style sheets, you can call it that, as a part of each HTML tag. So it's within the HTML itself, and therefore it is called inline. All right, now let's flip to brackets for a second. The second way to use CSS is inside the head tag. All right, so what I have highlighted here is the style tag, and notice it's in between the 2 head tags. Got my title tag, and remember we said that the head tag is for invisible information. In this case, it's style information. So these are for some table styles. All right, but what we're first going to do is use CSS inline, or inside the text. So here is CSS in the head tag, not standard, just for practice, just for these few weeks. CSS inline, or inside as an attribute of the HTML tag that you're working with, or as a separate file. So we have here a CSS file that can control many web pages at once, and that is what we are working toward. Today we are simply practicing how to change colors and things like that. We are not going to use CSS as a separate file. We're going to be doing that later. Nevertheless, I wanted to show you this because this is how it is done in the real world. So, for example, here I have a CSS rule that covers the entire body tag. So body, curly brace, background color, colon, and here's the color, semicolon, curly brace. So that is known as a CSS rule. I have a nice little graphic of that. Okay, CSS syntax. A CSS rule is a selector, in this case the H1 tag, a declaration block, and essentially what we're saying is, hello, for the H1 tag, we declare that the property of it shall be color and the value of it shall be blue. The property of the H1 tag shall be font size and its value shall be 12 pixels. And all that is enclosed in a set of curly braces. All right, so you can group as many of these together as you like. So the property is color, the value is blue. Here the property is font size and the value is 12 pixels. So it consists of a selector, in this case the H1 tag, and a declaration. Okay, so here are some examples. Now, H1 style equals is what kind of CSS? That's right, it's CSS within the body of the HTML document, or inline CSS. All right, on my example here in brackets, this is an external CSS sheet which can link to many web pages. Don't let that confuse you for right now, just memorize it. And here we have CSS within the head tag. So style, and we can also group these. Table, this is table header, table data, and then we have our CSS rule. So we're saying, hey, browser, for the table, table header, and table data tags, we would like our border to be 1 pixel solid black, semicolon. Border collapse means that by default, HTML gives you a double border. Collapse gives you a single line. And we will have padding or space within the table of 15 pixels. So the syntax is the tag, a curly brace, and then the declaration. The selector here, the property, actually the selector here, the property, and the value here. Okay, selector, property, value. All right, so let's actually do that so we can see what this looks like. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and preview this. So this is our Introduction to Typography page that we've been working on. And as you can see, I have some CSS that is controlling the H1 tag. It's controlling the color of the typeface, and it's controlling the color of the background. Not a whole lot else. And then I have CSS that's controlling this table. But we're going to take that table apart later. We're just going to cover color right now. All right, so H1. So here's their simplest way